The champagne flutes clinked around me like tiny church bells announcing someone else's salvation. I stood near the catering table, my black serving uniform blending into the shadows of the grand ballroom, watching crystal chandeliers scatter light across faces I'd never belong among. The air smelled of expensive perfume, aged whiskey, and something I'd learned to recognize in my 2 years of catering high-end events. The particular scent of people who'd never worried about rent. My feet ached in the cheap heels I'd bought at a discount store, but I kept my smile pleasant, professional, invisible. That's what we were supposed to be, ghosts in black and white, refilling glasses and clearing plates while the real people celebrated their real lives. "More champagne, miss?" I asked a woman dripping in diamonds. But she waved me away without looking at me. Of course. I moved through the crowd, my tray balanced perfectly despite the tremor in my hands. I'd been doing this for 3 months now, ever since the divorce was finalized. Ever since Daniel had made it clear that I was the mistake he'd corrected by marrying Veronica. Beautiful, wealthy, perfect Veronica, who'd been his assistant, then his mistress, and now his bride. The wedding was tonight. Somewhere across town, in an even grander ballroom than this one, Daniel was probably kissing her, their guests toasting to their happiness while I served drinks to strangers to pay for the lawyer fees I still owed. Careful there. A hand steadied my tray as I stumbled slightly, and I looked up into the kindest eyes I'd seen all night. An older woman, maybe 60, with silver hair and a warm smile. These events can be exhausting, can't they? "I'm fine, thank you," I murmured, but she patted my arm gently. "You remind me of my daughter," she said softly. "She has that same strength in her eyes even when she's tired." Something about her words made my throat tight, and I had to look away before I embarrassed myself by crying in the middle of someone's corporate gala. "That's very kind. Catherine, there you are." A man approached, tall and distinguished in an obviously tailored tuxedo. "We should go say hello to the Morettis." The woman, Catherine, smiled at me once more before letting herself be led away, and I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. The rest of the evening blurred into a routine of smiles, nods, and silent service. By 11, my feet were screaming, and my back ached from holding perfect posture for 6 hours straight. I'd just set down my tray in the kitchen area when my phone buzzed, a photo. Daniel and Veronica, her in a dress that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. Him looking at her the way he'd once looked at me. The caption from my former friend, one of the many who'd chosen sides after the divorce, read, "Beautiful couple. So happy for them." I deleted the message and shoved my phone in my apron pocket, blinking back the burning in my eyes. I would not cry. Not here, not over him, not anymore. "Hey, Emma, we need someone to cover the VIP lounge upstairs," my supervisor called out. "Extra $50. I needed that $50 more than I needed my pride, so I nodded and grabbed a fresh tray of champagne. The VIP lounge was on the 20th floor, accessible only by a private elevator that required a key card, the kind of place where the real power players gathered, away from the regular guests. The elevator doors opened to reveal a different world. Where the ballroom below had been bright and celebratory, this space was all dark wood, leather, and amber lighting. Jazz played softly from hidden speakers, and the air smelled of expensive cigars and older money. There were maybe 15 people here, all men except for 2 women who looked like they belonged in fashion magazines. Everyone was speaking in low tones, and unlike downstairs, they noticed when I entered. Eyes tracked me as I moved to the bar area to set down my tray. Finally, someone competent. The bartender, an older man with graying temples, looked relieved. "Can you handle the corner table? They've been asking for service for 10 minutes. I followed his gesture to a private alcove partially hidden by a decorative screen. As I rounded it, tray in hand, I saw him for the first time. He sat alone, though everything about his posture suggested he was never truly alone. Mid-30s, maybe, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on movie screens. Sharp jaw, straight nose, and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb the amber light around him. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and even from across the small space, I could smell his cologne. Cedar, leather, and something darker, more dangerous. He was looking at his phone, his expression unreadable, one hand resting on the table where gold cufflinks caught the light. There was something about the way he occupied space, as if the room had rearranged itself around him, as if gravity worked differently in his vicinity. "Sir?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Would you like—" He looked up, and the world tilted. I'd served hundreds of wealthy, powerful men in my catering career. I'd learned to keep my eyes down, my voice neutral, to be furniture with a pulse, but when his gaze met mine, I forgot every rule I'd ever learned. His eyes weren't just dark, they were endless, ancient, holding secrets that could bury cities. For a moment, something flickered in them, something that made my breath catch and my heart slam against my ribs. Recognition, maybe, though we'd never met. Or assessment, the kind predators make when they've spotted something interesting. "Champagne," he said, his voice low and precise, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or something Mediterranean that had been smoothed by years of American private schools. My hands shook slightly as I poured, and I hated myself for it. I'd faced Daniel's lawyers, his accusations, his family's contempt, and I'd never trembled. But this man, this stranger, made my fingers unsteady. "Thank you," he murmured as I set the glass before him, and I started to retreat. "Wait." I froze, turned back. He was studying me now, really looking, and I felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with my simple uniform or worn shoes. "You're new." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. 3 months. "You don't like it here." Again, not a question. I should have lied, should have given him the professional response. Instead, something in his eyes pulled the truth from me. "I don't like pretending to be invisible." The corner of his mouth lifted, just barely. "Then why do it?" "Because invisible people still have to eat." He was silent for a long moment, and I couldn't read his expression. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Heavy cream stock with embossed lettering. He held it out to me. I took it automatically, my fingers brushing his for just a second. His skin was warm, and I felt that brief contact like an electric shock that traveled up my arm and settled somewhere in my chest. The card read simply, "Dante Moretti," with a phone number below. No title, no company name. "If you ever tire of being invisible," he said quietly, "call me." I stared at the card, then at him, confusion warring with something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. "I don't understand." "You will." He picked up his champagne glass, dismissing me with the gesture, but his eyes held mine for one more second. In that second, I saw something that made my stomach flip. Interest, dark and intense and wholly focused on me. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my tray, and fled the alcove. My heart was pounding as I returned to the bar area, Dante Moretti's card burning in my pocket like a live coal. The bartender was serving someone else, and I tried to steady my breathing, to understand what had just happened. "Emma." My supervisor's voice crackled through my earpiece. "We need you back downstairs, now." I took the elevator down, grateful for the moment alone to collect myself. The card felt heavy in my pocket, impossible to ignore. I pulled it out, staring at the embossed name, Moretti. The older woman, Catherine, had been going to greet the Morettis. Was he related to her? Was this some kind of networking opportunity, or something else entirely? I shoved the card back in my pocket as the elevator doors opened. The ballroom was beginning to empty, guests filing out in clusters of laughter and expensive perfume. I helped the other servers clear tables, stack chairs, my mind elsewhere. By 1 a.m, I was finally free to go. I changed out of my uniform in the staff bathroom, pulling on jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. My reflection looked tired, shadows under my eyes, my blonde hair escaping its bun in messy strands. The parking garage was nearly empty when I reached my car, a 10-year-old sedan that coughed when I started it. As I pulled out of my spot, I noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked near the exit. Something about it made me uneasy, but I shook off the feeling. I was exhausted, paranoid from lack of sleep. I drove home through empty streets, my mind circling back to Dante Moretti again and again. The way he'd looked at me, the card in my pocket, the strange certainty in his voice when he'd said, "You will." My apartment was in a building that had been charming in the rental listing and barely habitable in reality. I climbed 3 flights of stairs, my body aching with exhaustion, and unlocked my door. The space was small, a studio with a kitchenette and a bathroom that sometimes had hot water. But it was mine, paid for with my own money, free from Daniel's control and his family's judgment. I dropped my purse on the tiny table and pulled out Dante's card again. In the harsh fluorescent light of my apartment, it looked even more expensive, more out of place, like him. I should throw it away. I should forget the whole strange encounter and focus on my real life. The bills, the second job I needed to find, the slow, painful process of rebuilding myself after Daniel had torn me apart. Instead, I propped the card against my lamp and stared at it until my eyes burned. I didn't know it then, but that card, that brief moment with a stranger in an amber-lit alcove, had already changed everything. The invisible woman I'd been trying to be had been seen, and there was no going back. Outside my window, in the parking lot below, a black SUV idled for 5 minutes before driving away. I didn't call the number. For 3 days, Dante Moretti's card sat on my nightstand, a small rectangle of cream-colored accusation that I couldn't bring myself to touch or throw away. I went to work, a morning shift at a coffee shop near downtown, then evening catering gigs, and pretended the card didn't exist. But I felt watched. It was subtle at first, a black car that seemed to appear on my street too often, the sensation of eyes on me when I walked to the bus stop. Once, I could have sworn I saw the same man in a dark suit outside both my jobs. But when I looked again, he was gone. Paranoia, I told myself. Exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. On Thursday afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press accept. Emma Clark? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes? This is Victoria Chen from Moretti Enterprises. Mr. Moretti would like to invite you to dinner tomorrow evening at Luminosa. A car will collect you at 7. My mouth went dry. I haven't called. Mr. Moretti anticipated you might need encouragement. There was a hint of amusement in her voice. He asked me to tell you that you deserve better than invisibility. The dress code is formal. The car will arrive at your address at 7 sharp. She hung up before I could refuse. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering. How did he have my number? My address? Moretti Enterprises. I'd heard that name before, always spoken in hushed tones, always associated with power and money and things that happened in shadows. I should have been afraid. Instead, I felt something else entirely, a dark thrill that made my skin prickle and my breath come faster. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since before the divorce. I Googled myself. There wasn't much to find. A few old social media profiles I'd deleted. A mention in Daniel's family's charity foundation newsletter from years ago. Nothing that would lead a stranger to my phone number or address. Then I typed, Dante Moretti. The search results made my stomach drop. Moretti Enterprises. Real estate, import, export, luxury hotels, billions in assets. But between the corporate press releases, there were other articles, whispers of connections to organized crime, investigations that went nowhere, reporters who'd asked too many questions and suddenly stopped asking any at all. One article from 3 years ago showed a photo of him leaving a courthouse, flanked by lawyers and men in dark suits who looked like they could break bones with their bare hands. The headline read, Moretti walks free again. Witnesses recant testimony. I should have blocked the number. Should have moved apartments, changed my name, disappeared. Instead, I went to the thrift store the next morning and spent an hour searching for a dress that wouldn't embarrass me at a place called Luminosa. I found one. Black, simple, with a neckline that was elegant rather than provocative. It fit well enough, and with my mother's old pearl earrings, I could almost pass for someone who belonged in Dante Moretti's world, almost. At 6:45 p.m., I stood in my apartment, dressed and terrified, watching the street below. My reflection in the window showed a woman I barely recognized, hair curled and pinned up, makeup carefully applied, the black dress making me look older, more sophisticated than I felt. At exactly 7, a black Mercedes pulled up to my building. Not an SUV this time, but a sedan that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. A man in a driver's uniform stepped out and looked up at my window as if he knew exactly which one was mine. My hands shook as I grabbed my purse, a cheap clutch that clashed with everything but was the best I had, and headed downstairs. The driver opened the back door without a word. The interior smelled of leather and that same dark cologne I remembered from the VIP lounge. As we pulled away from the curb, I noticed another black SUV fall into position behind us. Security. He traveled with security. The reality of what I was doing hit me like a physical blow. I was in a car sent by a man I didn't know, heading to dinner with someone who might be, probably was, dangerous. Every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to screamed warnings in my head. But I didn't ask the driver to stop. I didn't jump out at a red light. I sat in the leather seat and watched the city pass by, my heart pounding a rhythm that felt like surrender. Luminosa occupied the top floor of a building in the financial district. The elevator required a key card, of course it did, and rose so smoothly I barely felt the motion. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space that made the VIP lounge look cheap. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city lights spreading out like fallen stars. The restaurant was intimate, maybe 10 tables, all far apart, all occupied by people who looked like they made decisions that changed lives. Crystal and candlelight, the soft murmur of conversation, the clink of silverware on china that probably cost more than my rent. Miss Clark. A maitre d' appeared at my elbow. This way, please. He led me past the other tables, past the curious glances and appraising looks, to a private alcove near the windows. And there, rising from his seat with the grace of a predator, was Dante Moretti. He wore black again, a suit that fit him like sin, a shirt open at the collar showing a hint of tanned throat. His dark eyes found mine and held, and I felt that same electric shock I'd felt when our fingers brushed over his business card. Emma. My name in his voice sounded like a prayer or a curse. You came. You didn't really give me a choice, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. The corner of his mouth lifted. You always have a choice. You chose to get in the car. You chose to come upstairs. You're choosing to sit down. I was still standing, I realized. The maitre d' had pulled out my chair, waiting. I sat, and Dante settled back into his seat across from me, his eyes never leaving my face. Why am I here? I asked. Because I wanted to see you again. Simple. Direct. As if it were the most natural thing in the world. You don't know me. Not yet. He lifted a hand, and immediately a sommelier appeared with wine. Red, expensive, poured into crystal that caught the candlelight. But I know enough. You're divorced. 3 months. You work 2 jobs, coffee shop and catering. You live alone in an apartment on the east side that has inadequate security, and neighbors who play music too loud on weekends. I slid down my spine. You investigated me. I protect my interests. I'm not your interest. His smile was slow, dangerous. Aren't you? A waiter appeared with the first course. Something delicate and artistic that I couldn't have named if my life depended on it. I stared at it, my appetite gone, my hands trembling in my lap. Eat, Dante said softly. You're too thin. When did you last have a proper meal? The question, asked with such casual concern, made something crack in my chest. Why do you care? Because you interest me, Emma Clark. Because when you looked at me in that VIP lounge, you didn't see a name or a reputation. You saw a person. Do you know how rare that is? I picked up my fork to have something to do with my hands. I didn't see anything. I was working. You saw me. His voice dropped lower, became something dark and certain. The same way I saw you, pretending to be invisible, wearing that uniform like armor, but your eyes... He paused, took a sip of wine. Your eyes were furious, at the world, at yourself, at whatever put you in that ballroom serving people who couldn't see past their own reflections. You don't know anything about me, I whispered. Then tell me. He leaned forward slightly, and the candlelight played across his features, highlighting the sharp angles of his face. "Tell me about the man who was stupid enough to let you go." I shouldn't have. I should have made polite conversation, finished the meal, gone home, and never answered his calls again. Instead, I told him everything. About Daniel, who'd seemed so perfect when we met in college. About the slow erosion of our marriage, the way he'd made me feel small, insufficient. About Veronica, who'd been everything I wasn't, polished, connected, from the right family. About the divorce that had taken everything I had, and left me with nothing but debt and the kind of exhaustion that settled in your bones. Dante listened without interruption, his dark eyes fixed on my face, his expression unreadable. When I finally stopped talking, my throat raw and my eyes burning, he was silent for a long moment. "He's a fool," he said finally, "and she's welcome to him." Something about the certainty in his voice made me laugh, a broken sound that was half sob. "You don't even know him. I know men like him, weak, unable to recognize value when it's in front of them." He reached across the table, and before I could pull back, his fingers brushed my wrist, just a touch, barely there, but it sent fire racing up my arm. "You deserve better than invisibility, Emma. Better than serving drinks to people who don't see you. Better than an apartment with broken locks and a life spent trying to be small enough not to be hurt again. And what do you know about what I deserve?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, defensive. "More than you think." He withdrew his hand, but his eyes held mine captive. "I know what it's like to be underestimated. To have people look at you and see only what they want to see, never the truth beneath." "What truth?" I challenged, my heart pounding. His smile was cold, beautiful, terrifying. "That I'm capable of anything, that I protect what's mine with everything I have, that I don't lose. I'm not yours to protect, not yet," he said again, and those two words held a promise that made my breath catch. The meal continued, course after exquisite course that I barely tasted. Dante asked questions, and I answered, pulled by the magnetic force of his attention. He told me things, too, carefully chosen pieces about his mother Catherine, whom I'd met at the gala, about building his empire from nothing, about the loneliness of power. But there were gaps in his stories, shadows where the dangerous parts lived, and I was too afraid, or too fascinated, to ask what filled those shadows. By the time dessert arrived, something chocolate and sinful, I'd had 2 glasses of wine and felt like I was floating. Or drowning. It was hard to tell the difference. "I should go," I said, though I didn't move. "Should you?" Dante's voice was soft, hypnotic. I struggled for words. "I don't understand what this is. It's dinner, Emma. Just dinner." But his eyes said it was so much more than that. "Men like you don't have just dinner with women like me." "Men like me?" He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "What kind of man do you think I am?" "Dangerous," I thought. "Powerful. The kind who makes people disappear." "Rich," I said instead. "And you think that's all I am? Money and influence? Isn't it?" He stood then, moving around the table with predatory grace, and offered me his hand. "Come with me." I should have refused. Should have called a cab, gone home, blocked his number. Instead, I put my hand in his and let him pull me to my feet. He led me to the windows, and we stood looking out over the city. All those lights, all those lives, spread out below us like a kingdom. "I built all of this," he said quietly, standing close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "Every piece of it. From nothing. Do you know what that takes, Emma?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Everything." His hand came up to my face, fingers tracing my jawline with a gentleness that contrasted with the steel in his voice. "It takes everything you have and more. It takes being willing to do things that others won't. To become someone that others fear. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand." He turned me to face him, and his eyes were black fire in the dim light. "When I decide something is mine, I don't let go. When I want something, I take it. And Emma..." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I stopped breathing. "I want you." The words should have terrified me. Instead, they ignited something dark and hungry in my chest, something that had been starving for months, maybe years. "You don't know me," I whispered. I know enough. I know you're stronger than you think, braver than you believe. I know that you walked away from a life that was killing you, even though you had nothing waiting on the other side. I know that you looked at me like I was human, when everyone else sees only what they fear or want. His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair. And I know that you feel this too. This pull. This inevitability. He was right. God help me. He was right. I felt it in every cell of my body. The magnetic draw. The sense that something fundamental had shifted the moment our eyes met in that VIP lounge. I can't, I started, but I didn't know how to finish. Can't what? Can't fall into this? Can't let myself want something dangerous? Can't admit that for the first time since the divorce, I felt alive instead of just surviving? You can, Dante murmured, and his lips were so close to mine I could taste the wine on his breath. You can choose this. Choose me. Choose to stop being invisible and start being seen. And then he kissed me. The kiss destroyed me. Not gentle, not tentative. Dante kissed me like he was claiming something that had always belonged to him, like he was burning away every ghost of Daniel's touch, every moment I'd spent feeling worthless. His hand tightened in my hair, tilting my head back, and I opened for him with a sound that might have been surrender or desperation or both. He tasted like wine and danger, and something darker. Something that should have scared me but instead made me press closer, my hands fisting in his jacket. The city lights blurred beyond the windows, the restaurant faded away, and there was only this. His mouth on mine, his body a wall of heat and controlled power, the thundering of my heart loud enough to drown out reason. When he finally pulled back, I was trembling, my lips swollen, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Come home with me, he said, his voice rough, his eyes burning into mine. Every survival instinct I possessed screamed at me to refuse, to run, to put distance between myself and this man who looked at me like he wanted to devour me whole. Okay, I whispered instead. Something flashed in his eyes, triumph, possession, something primal that made heat pool low in my stomach. He kept his hand on the small of my back as we left the restaurant, guiding me with a touch that was both gentle and immovable. The maitre d' and staff seemed to materialize and vanish like ghosts. No bill presented, no payment exchanged. As if the restaurant itself bent to Dante's will. The elevator descended in silence. I could feel him watching me, his gaze a physical weight, but I kept my eyes on the numbers counting down. 15, 10, 5. Each floor another chance to change my mind, to remember who I was. A divorced woman with 2 jobs and a studio apartment, not someone who belonged in Dante Moretti's world. The doors opened to the parking garage and I stopped breathing. Where my driver had left me in a sedan, Dante led me to something else entirely, a black Rolls-Royce that gleamed under the fluorescent lights like a predator's pelt. 2 SUVs were already running, flanking it, men in dark suits standing at attention. One of them, broad-shouldered, with a scar cutting through his eyebrow, opened the back door. He met my eyes for just a second, and I saw assessment there, maybe warning. Then his expression went blank, professional. Thank you, Marco, Dante said, his hand never leaving my back as he guided me into the car. The interior was all leather and wood, smelling of luxury and that cedar cologne that was becoming dangerously familiar. A privacy screen separated us from the driver, and as soon as Dante settled beside me, the car began to move, the 2 SUVs forming an escort around us. Where are we going? My voice sounded small in the enclosed space. My home. He poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses, offered me one. It's about 20 minutes outside the city. I took the glass but didn't drink, watching the city lights slide past the tinted windows. Do you always travel like this, with guards? Always. No hesitation, no explanation offered. Because you're in danger? His smile was sharp. Because I'm dangerous, Emma. There's a difference. I should have asked him to stop the car. Should have demanded to be taken back to my apartment. Instead, I took a sip of whatever was in the glass, whiskey, smooth and expensive, burning down my throat like liquid courage. The articles online, I said carefully. About the investigations, the witnesses who recanted their testimony. You researched me. He sounded pleased rather than concerned. I researched the man who somehow got my phone number and address without me giving them to him. I have resources. He swirled the whiskey in his glass, watching me over the rim. And I use them to protect what matters to me. I don't matter to you. You don't know me. I'm beginning to. He set down his glass and shifted closer, his thigh pressing against mine, his arm along the back of the seat behind my shoulders, not touching, but close enough that I felt surrounded. And everything I learn makes me more certain. Certain of what? That you're meant to be mine. The words should have sounded insane, possessive, wrong. Instead, they made something in my chest tighten with an emotion I couldn't name. People don't belong to other people, don't they? His fingers found a loose strand of my hair, twisting it gently. Haven't you ever wanted to belong to someone, Emma? Not in the way you belong to your ex-husband. Diminished, controlled, made small. But truly belonged, protected, treasured, kept safe from everything that could hurt you. That sounds like a cage, or a sanctuary. His voice dropped lower, became intimate, hypnotic. Depending on who holds the key, the car slowed, turned onto a private road lined with trees. We passed through gates that opened automatically, recognition technology built into the vehicle. The driveway curved through manicured grounds, landscape lighting illuminating gardens that probably required a full-time staff. And then the house, no, the estate, came into view. It was modern, all glass and stone and sharp angles, lit from within so it glowed against the darkness like a jewel. 3 stories at least, sprawling across the hilltop with a view that probably encompassed half the county. You live here? I breathed. Alone? I have staff, security, but yes, essentially alone. The car stopped at the entrance, and Marco was already there, opening the door. Dante exited first, then offered me his hand. I took it, letting him help me out, and tried not to gape like a tourist. The entrance was 2 stories high, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a foyer with a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a museum. This way. Dante's hand returned to my back, guiding me inside. The interior was breathtaking. All clean lines and expensive art, marble floors and furniture that probably had names I couldn't pronounce. But it felt cold somehow, untouched, like a showroom rather than a home. You don't like it, Dante observed, watching my face. It's beautiful, I said carefully. But it doesn't feel like anyone lives here. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. No one has ever said that before. Maybe no one else was looking. His eyes darkened, and he pulled me closer, his hands spanning my waist. And what do you see, Emma, when you look at me? I saw danger, power. A man who could destroy me with a word, who probably had destroyed others without a second thought. But I also saw loneliness, the kind that lived in spaces too large and too empty, in homes that were fortresses instead of sanctuaries. Someone who's as alone as I am, I whispered. He kissed me again, harder this time, backing me against the wall of the foyer with his body pressing into mine. I gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, his hands moving, one tangling in my hair, the other sliding down my side, burning through the thin fabric of my dress. Dante! I managed between kisses. Say it again. His mouth moved to my throat, teeth grazing the sensitive skin there. Say my name again. Dante. It came out like a prayer. He groaned, a sound that vibrated through his chest into mine, and I felt the evidence of his desire pressing against my hip. It should have scared me, this intensity, this hunger that felt like it could consume us both. Instead, it made me bold. I pulled at his jacket, shoving it off his shoulders, my hands finding the warm skin of his neck, the strong muscles of his shoulders through his shirt. He let me, holding still even as tension coiled through his body like a snake ready to strike. Emma. My name was a warning. If you want to stop, tell me now. I don't want to stop. The truth, reckless and dangerous. His control snapped. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist instinctively, and carried me through the house. I had impressions, More art, a living room that could fit my entire apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the city lights far below. Then stairs, wide and curving, his footsteps steady despite my weight, his mouth never leaving mine. A hallway, a door that opened with a kick, and then a bedroom that made me forget how to breathe. The bed was enormous, centered in a room with windows on 2 walls, offering a view of the night sky that made it feel like we were floating in space. Everything was dark grays and blacks, masculine and elegant, dominated by that massive bed with its charcoal silk sheets. Dante set me down beside it, his hands going to the zipper of my dress. "Last chance, Emma. After this, you're mine." I should have questioned the certainty in his voice, the possession implicit in those words. Instead, I reached up and kissed him, my answer clear. He made a sound low in his throat and slid the zipper down slowly, his knuckles brushing my spine, making me shiver. The dress fell away, pooling at my feet, and I stood before him in just my underwear. Cheap, functional, nothing like what a woman in his world would wear. But Dante looked at me like I was art, like I was precious, like I was exactly what he'd been searching for. "Perfect," he murmured, his hands skimming my sides, my hips, learning the shape of me. "You're perfect, Emma." I wasn't. I was too thin from months of stress and irregular meals, my skin pale from working too much and sleeping too little. But in his eyes, reflected in the dark hunger on his face, I felt beautiful for the first time in years. My hands went to his shirt, fingers clumsy with the buttons. He helped me, shrugging it off, and I finally saw what the expensive suits had hidden. A body carved from marble and shadows, all lean muscle and smooth skin marked with scars. A puckered circle on his shoulder, bullet wound, I thought with a jolt. A long slash along his ribs. Evidence of a life lived dangerously. I traced the scar on his shoulder with trembling fingers. Does it hurt? Not anymore. He caught my hand, brought it to his lips. Nothing hurts when I'm looking at you. Then he was lowering me to the bed, his body covering mine, his weight both grounding and electrifying. His mouth found mine again as his hands explored, mapping every curve, every sensitive spot, until I was gasping and arching beneath him. "Dante, please." "I know, Cara." The endearment in Italian, dark and intimate. "I know what you need." And he gave it to me. Gave me everything. His hands, his mouth, his body moving with mine until I shattered, crying out his name into the darkness. He followed moments later, my name on his lips like a vow, like a claim, like a promise I didn't fully understand. Afterward, I lay wrapped in silk sheets in Dante's arms, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow to something almost normal. His hand stroked my hair with surprising gentleness, his other arm locked around my waist like even in satisfaction, he couldn't let go. "Stay," he murmured into my hair. "Stay with me. And just for tonight," I whispered back, already knowing it was a lie. "For as long as I can keep you." His arms tightened. "And Emma?" "I always keep what's mine." I should have been afraid of the possessiveness in his voice, the certainty that I belonged to him now. Instead, I felt safe for the first time in months, protected, wanted. I fell asleep in a stranger's arms, in a bed that cost more than my yearly salary, and dreamed of cages made of silk and shadows, where the bars were made of desire, and the locks were formed from kisses that tasted like forever. Outside, beyond the windows, Marco and 3 other guards patrolled the grounds, their presence a constant reminder of the world Dante lived in, a world I'd just stepped into without understanding the price of admission, a world I was already beginning to realize I might never be able to leave. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the scent of coffee. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. The bed was too soft, the sheets too smooth, the ceiling too high. Then memory crashed back. Dante. The restaurant. His hands on my body. His voice promising to keep me. I sat up, clutching the silk sheet to my chest, and found myself alone in the enormous bedroom. My dress from last night was gone, replaced by a white button-down shirt draped over a chair. His shirt, I realized, still carrying the faint scent of cedar, and something uniquely him. My hands shook as I put it on, the fabric swallowing me, falling to mid-thigh. No sign of my underwear, my shoes, my cheap clutch. Just me in a stranger's shirt, in a stranger's bedroom, with sunlight revealing exactly how far I was from my real life. I found my phone on the nightstand. How had it gotten there? And my stomach dropped at the time. 10:47 a.m. I'd missed my morning shift at the coffee shop. 14 missed calls, 8 voicemails, dozens of texts. Most were from my supervisor at the coffee shop, progressing from concerned to angry, but 3 were from a number I didn't recognize, and when I opened them, ice flooded my veins. The first was a photo of me and Dante leaving Luminosa last night, his hand on my back, both of us clearly visible under the restaurant's lighting. The second was a screenshot of a gossip blog post, already live. Moretti's mystery woman, who is she? The third was from Daniel. What the hell are you doing, Emma? Call me. Now. My breath came in short gasps as I scrolled through the blog post. Someone had identified me, Emma Clark, divorced 3 months ago from Daniel Morrison of the Morrison family, now apparently dating Dante Moretti, billionaire businessman and rumored crime lord. The comments were vicious, gold digger, desperate, trading up from one rich man to another. Someone had even found my old social media photos, posting them alongside last night's pictures with cruel commentary about my transformation. A knock on the door made me jump. Emma? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. May I come in? Yes? The door opened to reveal a woman in her 40s, elegant in a dove-gray dress, carrying a tray. Good morning. I'm Helen, Mr. Moretti's house manager. I've brought breakfast, and your clothes have been cleaned and pressed. They're in the closet. She set the tray on a small table near the windows. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they'd been baked this morning. Professional, efficient, as if women waking up in Dante's bed was a regular occurrence. The thought made something ugly twist in my chest. Where is he? I asked, my voice rough from sleep and rising panic. In his office. He asked that you join him when you're ready. Helen's expression was neutral, giving nothing away. The bathroom is through there. Please take your time. She left before I could ask any of the 1,000 questions crowding my throat. I forced myself to eat something. A few bites of croissant that tasted like sawdust in my anxiety-dry mouth, and then retreated to the bathroom. It was larger than my entire studio apartment, all marble and glass, with a shower that had more settings than my car. I showered quickly, trying not to think about the fact that Dante had probably stood in this same space this morning, water running over his scarred skin. Trying not to remember how those scars had felt under my fingers last night. My clothes were in the closet as promised. The black dress cleaned and pressed, looking better than it had when I bought it. My underwear folded neatly. Even my cheap shoes had been polished. I dressed mechanically, my mind spinning. I needed to leave, needed to get back to my real life, deal with the fallout from missing work, figure out how to handle the photos that were apparently spreading across the internet. But first, I needed to face Dante. Helen was waiting in the hallway when I emerged, and she led me through the house in daylight. It was even more impressive than I'd realized. Art that belonged in museums, furniture that was probably antique and priceless, and windows everywhere, offering views of the grounds that looked professionally landscaped. We passed other staff members, a housekeeper, 2 men who were clearly security based on the bulges under their jackets. They all nodded respectfully but didn't speak, didn't stare, as if my presence was expected. Helen stopped at a door of dark wood and knocked once. Mr. Moretti? Miss Clark. Send her in. His voice, even muffled by the door, made my pulse quicken. The office was all masculinity and power. Dark wood, leather chairs, one wall entirely of books, another of windows overlooking the city. And behind a massive desk, Dante sat in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. He stood when I entered, his eyes tracking over me with an intensity that made me feel exposed, despite being fully dressed. Emma, did you sleep well? How can you be so calm? The words burst out of me. There are photos everywhere, blog posts. People know who I am, know we were together. I know. He came around the desk, moving with that predatory grace I was beginning to recognize. Sit down, Kara. Let me explain. Explain? Explain how? but I sat in the chair he indicated, my hands gripping the arms. My ex-husband is calling me. I missed work. Complete strangers are posting about me online. Your ex-husband is calling because he's panicking. Dante perched on the edge of his desk, close enough to touch. The Morrison family has business interests that intersect with mine. Seeing you with me has made Daniel realize exactly what he lost, and what having you in my sphere could mean for his family's position. I don't understand. You don't need to. His voice was gentle but firm. What you need to understand is that you're under my protection now. No one will touch you. No one will harm you. And anyone who tries— His eyes went dark, dangerous. Will regret it. This is insane. I stood, needing distance, pacing to the windows. Yesterday I was serving drinks at a gala. Today I'm on gossip blogs dating a man who— I turned to face him. Who has people investigating witnesses, who travels with armed guards, who lives in a fortress. Yes. No denial, no excuses. I can't do this. The words hurt coming out. I need to go home. I need my life back. What life, Emma? He stood, moved toward me with that same inevitable quality he'd had last night, the one where you work yourself to exhaustion for minimum wage, where you live in an apartment with broken locks and eat ramen for dinner because you can't afford anything else, where you're invisible and alone and slowly dying inside. Each word hit like a physical blow, because they were true. All of it was true. I can't be what you want, I whispered. You already are. He cupped my face in his hands, tilting it up to meet his gaze. You're exactly what I want, Emma. Exactly what I need. Strong, resilient, real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Your world is dangerous. Yes. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. But you're safer with me than you've ever been. Safer than you would be going back to that apartment, that life, now that people know you were with me. The implication made my blood run cold. Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying that being seen with me changes things. The photos are already out there. The gossip has started. You can't unring that bell, Kara. His expression softened. But I can protect you. I can give you a life where you never have to be invisible again, where you never have to worry about rent or broken locks or men like your ex-husband who don't know your value. In exchange for what? I pulled back from his touch, my heart hammering. What do you want from me, Dante? Really? He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching mine. Then, everything. I want everything, Emma. Your time, your presence, your truth. I want you in my home, in my bed, in my life. I want the right to protect you, to provide for you, to claim you publicly as mine. That's not a relationship. That's ownership. Call it what you want. He moved closer again, crowding into my space, his voice dropping to that hypnotic rumble. But tell me honestly, when was the last time you felt as alive as you did last night? When was the last time someone looked at you the way I look at you? When was the last time you felt wanted, desired, essential? Never, I thought. Not with Daniel. Maybe not ever. I need time, I managed. Time to think, to process. Time I'll give you. His hand found mine, fingers threading through mine. But you'll do your thinking here, where I can keep you safe, where I can show you what life could be like with me. Dante. A knock interrupted whatever I'd been about to say. Marco entered without waiting for permission, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, from lover to something harder, colder, dangerous. What kind of problem? Daniel Morrison is here, at the gate, with reporters. My stomach dropped. Oh God. Dante's hand tightened on mine. How many reporters? 6 vehicles. They're asking for statements about Miss Clark. Marco's eyes flicked to me briefly. Morrison is demanding to see her. Absolutely not. Dante's voice was steel. Increase security at the gate. No one gets through. And get our legal team on the phone. I want a cease and desist sent to every outlet that published those photos within the hour. Already in progress. Marco nodded and left, moving with military efficiency. I pulled my hand free, backing away. This is exactly what I was talking about. This chaos, this attention. I can't handle this. You won't have to. Dante reached for me again, but I evaded, putting the desk between us. How? How can you possibly make this better? My ex-husband is outside with reporters. There are photos of us everywhere, because I'll handle it. He moved around the desk with predatory intent. I'll handle Daniel, the reporters, the gossip blogs. I'll make it all disappear, Emma. That's what I do. I solve problems. By making people disappear, the question came out sharper than I intended. His smile was cold. When necessary. I should have been horrified, should have run screaming. Instead, some dark part of me felt reassured that he was powerful enough to protect me from this mess, that he would use that power on my behalf. What do you want me to do? I asked quietly. Stay here. Stay safe. Let me take care of this. He finally reached me, his hands settling on my shoulders. Trust me, Kara. Trust that I know how to navigate my world, and trust that I won't let anyone hurt you, not Daniel, not the press, not anyone. And after, when you've solved this problem, after we figure out what comes next, together. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, surprisingly gentle. But right now, I need you to stay in this house, where my security can protect you. Can you do that for me? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good girl. The approval in his tone made warmth spread through my chest. Helen will stay with you. Anything you need, anything at all, you tell her. I'll be back as soon as I've dealt with this. He kissed me then, thorough and possessive, branding me with his mouth before pulling away. I watched him leave, watched him transform into someone colder, harder, more dangerous as he walked out the door. And I stood in his office, surrounded by the evidence of his power and wealth, and wondered what I'd really agreed to. Outside, beyond the gates I couldn't see from here, Daniel was demanding answers. Reporters were gathering like sharks scenting blood, and I was trapped in a gilded cage with a man who'd promised to protect me, who'd claimed me as his, who might be the most dangerous person in this entire situation. My phone buzzed with another text from Daniel. You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. He's dangerous, Emma. Let me help you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Because the truth was, I did know what I'd gotten into. I'd seen it in Dante's eyes, felt it in his touch, heard it in his voice when he said I was his. And the most terrifying part wasn't that he was dangerous, it was that I didn't want to leave. The hours crawled by in that beautiful prison. Helen brought me lunch in a sunroom that overlooked the gardens, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, food I would have considered a luxury a week ago. Now it tasted like ash in my mouth as I watched the news on my phone, seeing my own face staring back at me from a dozen gossip sites. Mystery woman identified, Emma Clark, ex-wife of Morrison heir, now dating alleged crime boss. From divorce to danger, what we know about Dante Moretti's new girlfriend. Morrison family responds, we're concerned for Emma's safety. That last one made me laugh bitterly. Daniel's family, who'd treated me like an inconvenient stain during our marriage, suddenly concerned about my safety, as if they hadn't thrown their entire legal team at me during the divorce, hadn't taken everything except the debts they'd generously allowed me to keep. My phone rang. Daniel again. I'd stopped answering after the 5th call, but he kept trying, kept leaving voicemails that ranged from concerned to angry to threatening legal action if I didn't contact him. Miss Clark? Helen appeared in the doorway. Mr. Moretti is returning. He asked that you meet him in the living room. My heart jumped. Relief and anxiety tangled together. I'd been alone for 4 hours, and the silence had been suffocating despite Helen's occasional check-ins. I found Dante in the living room, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, still in that charcoal suit but with his tie loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. He looked tired, the sharp angles of his face more pronounced. But when he turned and saw me, something in his expression softened. Come here, he said quietly. I went, unable to resist the pull, and he wrapped me in his arms, pulling me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and feel the tension in his muscles slowly unwinding. It's handled. He murmured into my hair. Daniel is gone. The reporters are gone. And tomorrow morning, Several publications will be issuing retractions and apologies. I pulled back to look at him. How did you... The Morrison family has vulnerabilities. I reminded them of this. His smile was sharp, dangerous. Daniel was convinced to make a public statement saying he's happy for you and wishes you well. The press has been reminded that harassment lawsuits are expensive, and certain photographs have been permanently removed from the internet. Just like that? Just like that? He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. I told you, Emma. I protect what's mine. I'm not... But the protest died on my lips because I didn't know how to finish it. I wasn't his, but I'd spent the night in his bed, let him kiss me senseless, agreed to stay here under his protection. What did that make me if not his? You are, he said, reading my thoughts in my eyes. And the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. This? Us. He kissed me, slow and deep, until my knees went weak, and I had to grip his shoulders for balance. You and me, Emma, this thing between us that started the moment our eyes met. It's too fast, I whispered against his mouth. Too intense. People don't fall into relationships like this. People like us do. He pulled me to the couch, settled me beside him with his arm around my shoulders, anchoring me to his side. We're both survivors, Kara. Both know what it's like to have nothing. To build everything from ashes. We recognize each other. You don't know me. Then let me learn. His hand found mine, fingers threading through mine with surprising gentleness. Stay here. Not just tonight, not just until the scandal dies down. Stay with me. Let me show you what life could be. Every rational part of my brain screamed warnings. This was moving too fast. He was too dangerous. I barely knew him. But the part of me that had been slowly dying in that studio apartment, working 2 jobs just to survive, being invisible and alone, that part whispered different words. Safe. Wanted. Alive. For how long? I asked quietly. As long as you'll give me. His voice was low, intense. As long as I can keep you. And when you get bored? When the novelty wears off and you realize you're not just anything. He turned me to face him, his dark eyes blazing. You're brave and strong and real in a world full of people playing pretend. You looked at me and saw a person, not a name or a reputation. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? I'm ordinary, I protested. I have nothing to offer someone like you. You have everything. His hands framed my face. Your honesty, your strength, your refusal to be diminished by the people who should have protected you. That's not ordinary, Emma. That's extraordinary. He kissed me again, and I felt myself melting, surrendering to the inevitable pull between us. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. I'm scared, I admitted. Good, so am I. The confession surprised me. I'm scared of how much I want you, of how quickly you've become essential. I'm a man who controls everything, Emma, and you make me feel out of control. Then why? Because some things are worth the risk. He stood, pulling me up with him. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led me through the house to a door I hadn't noticed before, tucked away near his office, unremarkable except for the biometric lock. His palm against the scanner, a soft beep, and it swung open to reveal stairs leading down. Dante, trust me. I followed him down into what I expected to be a basement, but was instead something else entirely. A secure room, windowless, with monitors showing various angles of the property, a gun safe, filing cabinets, and on one wall, photographs, not of family or friends, of threats. I recognized some faces from news reports, criminals, corrupt politicians, men who'd disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Red X's marked through several, notes in Italian scrawled across others. This is who I am, Dante said quietly, watching my face. This is the world I live in, the choices I've made. I won't lie to you about it, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. Hurt people who threatened what's mine, destroyed lives to protect my empire. I stared at the photographs, my heart hammering. This was real. Not speculation in articles or whispered rumors. This was evidence of exactly how dangerous he was. Why are you showing me this? My voice came out steady despite the fear crawling up my spine, because I need you to understand what staying with me means. It means being part of this world. It means having security follow you, living behind gates and locks, accepting that I've made enemies who would hurt you to hurt me. He moved closer, but didn't touch me. It means knowing that the man who holds you at night has blood on his hands. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to give you a choice, a real one, with full information. His jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed. I want you, Emma, more than I've wanted anything in years. But I won't trap you with pretty lies. If you stay knowing exactly who and what I am. I looked at the photographs again, all those faces, all those red X's. Evidence of a life lived in shadows, of choices made in violence. Then I looked at Dante, at the tension in his shoulders, the vulnerability hidden beneath the danger. What happened to them? I asked, pointing to the X-marked photos. The ones with red marks. Dead. Most of them. No hesitation. No softening. By my order or my hand, did they deserve it? His smile was cold. They threatened what's mine. That's all the reason I need. I should have run. Should have demanded he take me home. Should have called the police. Should have done anything except what I did. I crossed the space between us and took his hand. Emma, I'm not saying I understand this world, I said quietly, or that I won't be scared sometimes. But I've spent months being invisible, being small, letting fear control every decision I make. And last night, for the first time in longer than I can remember, I felt alive. I met his eyes. You make me feel alive, Dante. Seen. Wanted. And maybe that makes me crazy or reckless or stupid. It makes you brave. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me like steel bands. Braver than you know. I need promises, I said into his chest. Real ones. Anything. Promise you won't lie to me, even when the truth is ugly. I promise. His voice was rough. Promise you'll keep me safe, not just from others, but from you too. If this gets too dark, too dangerous, I'll let you go before I let you be hurt. His arms tightened. You have my word, Emma. My word, which I've never broken. I tilted my head back to look at him. And promise that if I stay, I'm not a prisoner. That I can leave, have my own life, make my own choices. Something flickered in his eyes, possession warring with respect. You can leave. The gates will always open for you. But Emma, his hand came up to cut my face. I'll spend every day giving you reasons to stay, every night showing you why you belong here, with me. I won't cage you, but I will fight like hell to keep you. That's not exactly reassuring, it's honest. His thumb traced my lower lip. I'm a possessive man, Kara, obsessive when it comes to what I want. And I want you with a need that borders on madness. But I'm not your ex-husband. I won't diminish you or control you or make you small. I want you exactly as you are. Strong, brave, defiant when you need to be. Even if I defy you, especially then. His smile was dark, heated. There's nothing more attractive than a woman who isn't afraid to challenge me. He kissed me there in that room full of shadows and secrets, and I kissed him back, sealing whatever bargain we were making. When he lifted me, I wrapped my legs around his waist, letting him carry me back upstairs through the house, to his bedroom where sunlight still streamed through those massive windows. This time was different from last night. Slower, more deliberate, as if we were both trying to memorize each moment. He undressed me carefully, reverently, kissing each new inch of exposed skin. And when he finally moved inside me, his eyes never left mine, holding me captive with that dark gaze that saw everything I was trying to hide. Mine. He breathed against my lips as we moved together. Say it, Emma. Say you're mine. Yours, I gasped and felt him shudder, felt the confession break something open between us. Afterward, we lay tangled in silk sheets, the city spreading out below us like a kingdom. Dante's fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder, and I felt the tension slowly draining from my body. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now you move in properly. We'll get your things from your apartment. What you want to keep. The rest, We'll replace. He pressed a kiss to my temple. I'll set up accounts for you. Credit cards. Access to everything you need. Helen will help you get settled. Dante, I can't just— Yes, you can. His voice was gentle but firm. You're under my protection now, which means you live like it. No more working yourself to exhaustion. No more cheap apartments and ramen dinners. You focus on yourself, on healing from everything your ex-husband put you through. I need purpose, I protested. I can't just be— You won't be idle. He shifted to look at me properly. My mother runs several charities. She's always looking for help, and you'd be perfect. Or if you want to go back to school, finish your degree. Whatever you want, Emma. Whatever makes you happy. Why? The question burst out. Why me? Why go to all this trouble for someone you barely know? He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching mine. Because the moment I saw you in that VIP lounge, something in me recognized something in you. Because when you looked at me, you didn't see Dante Moretti, billionaire or crime lord or whatever else they call me. You saw a person, a lonely person who'd built walls so high, he'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. His hand cupped my face, and because somewhere in the last 48 hours, I've fallen completely, irrevocably obsessed with you, that's not love, I whispered. Not yet. His smile was soft, dangerous, full of dark promise. But it will be. Give me time, Emma. Give me the chance to show you what we could be together. 3 months later, I stood in the same sunroom where I'd once eaten lunch alone, watching autumn paint the gardens in shades of gold and crimson. My hands rested on the slight swell of my belly, a surprise neither of us had planned but both had welcomed with a joy that still made my chest tight. Dante came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his hands covering mine over our growing child. What are you thinking about, Kara? How different everything is. I leaned back into his warmth. 3 months ago, I was invisible, alone, dying slowly in a life that was killing me. And now? Now I'm terrified and happy and still not entirely sure this is real. I turned in his arms to face him. But I'm alive, Dante. Really, truly alive. He kissed me softly, his hand moving to cradle my face. You saved me too, you know. Gave me something to protect besides business interests and territory. Gave me a reason to be better than the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not a monster. I am. His voice was serious. But I'm your monster, Emma, and I'll be our child's monster. And I'll burn down the world before I let anything hurt either of you. I know. And I did know. Had seen the lengths he'd go to protect what was his. Had watched him dismantle Daniel's attempts to claim I'd been coerced. Had seen him neutralize threats I'd never even known existed. Had felt the absolute certainty of his protection wrapping around me like armor. We'd had fights. Explosive arguments about his overprotectiveness, about the security that followed me everywhere, about the darkness of his world that sometimes bled into our life together. But we'd also had moments of perfect peace, of laughter and tenderness, and a connection that grew deeper every day. He wasn't perfect, neither was I. But we were real, and we were together, and somehow we were building something that felt like forever. Come with me, Dante said suddenly, taking my hand. I have something for you. He led me to his office, our office now, since I'd taken over managing his mother's charity foundation and needed the space. On his desk sat a small velvet box. My heart stopped. Dante, open it. Inside was a ring, a diamond so flawless it seemed to capture all the light in the room, set in platinum with smaller stones circling the band. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Emma Clark, Dante said, dropping to one knee before me, his dark eyes holding mine with that same intensity that had captured me from the first moment. You walked into my life when I'd forgotten what it meant to feel. You gave me hope when I'd accepted I'd always be alone. You're carrying my child, my future, my entire world in your body. He took my hand, his grip strong and sure. Marry me. Let me give you my name, my protection, my life. Let me spend every day proving that you made the right choice when you chose to stay. Tears blurred my vision as I looked at him. This dangerous, powerful man on his knees before me, offering everything he had. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, Dante. I'll marry you." He stood and kissed me, sliding the ring onto my finger with hands that trembled slightly, the only sign of the emotion he kept leashed beneath that controlled exterior. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "You're mine now," he said, his voice rough. "Officially, legally, irrevocably mine." "And you're mine," I countered, my hand on his chest, feeling his heart pound beneath my palm. "Don't forget that part." His smile was pure sin and promise. "Never, Kara. I'm yours until the day I die, and probably beyond that too." We married 2 months later in a private ceremony at his estate, surrounded by his family and the few people from my old life I still trusted. My mother cried tears of joy. His mother welcomed me with warmth that still surprised me, and Dante looked at me like I was his salvation as I walked down an aisle scattered with rose petals. When our daughter was born in spring, Lucia Catherine Moretti, named for both our mothers, I held her in my arms and marveled at the impossible journey that had brought me here. From invisible to essential. From alone to beloved. From surviving to thriving. Dante sat beside my hospital bed, his hand gentle on our daughter's dark head, and I saw tears slip down his cheeks. The first time I'd ever seen him cry. "Thank you," he whispered. "For staying. For choosing me. For giving me this. Thank you for seeing me," I whispered back, "for refusing to let me stay invisible." And as our daughter opened her eyes, dark like her father's, already filled with that same intensity, I knew that whatever shadows lived in Dante's world, whatever darkness we'd have to face, we'd face it together. I was Emma Moretti now, wife, mother, partner to one of the most dangerous men in the city, and I'd never felt safer, more loved, more truly seen in my entire life. The invisible woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, braver, whole, and I'd never look back.